teaches that you have to be Brahmana. Otherwise, if you don't know the background philosophy, and especially the spiritual practices, then you won't be able to advise people properly on spiritual life, because you yourself are not doing that. And so he started arguing with me, and then one thing led to another, and then he says he doesn't believe in Krishna and all this. And at that point I said, okay, you're not qualified to learn this. Goodbye. So you see, we have to go through so many people before we find someone. Forget finding someone who's qualified. To even find someone who's willing to become qualified is very rare. We're ready to work with people to help them become qualified. But, they have to follow the program. They have to follow the instructions. And this is what people don't want to do. They don't want to follow any instruction. They don't want to accept any advice or teachings. You see? They want to learn by themselves with a book or something like that. You can't learn this like that. Do you think you could learn how to fly a 747 by going off with the manual and just reading the book? No way. Brain surgery? You think you could learn brain surgery from a book? It's impossible, right? I mean, if you're willing to experiment on yourself, I suppose it would be all right. But what we're doing is actually like that. We are changing our consciousness. This is like brain surgery, right? Well, what if you mess up? So this is what's happening in our group right now. We have a splinter group that developed within our group, and one or two devotees, they used our network to set up their own network within our network. They got everybody's email, and they, built up some kind of relationship with some of our students. And then at a certain point, they started preaching a separatist philosophy, that you can take shelter of Srila Prabhupada without taking shelter of a contemporary spiritual master. So if you want to do that, that's fine, but form your own group. Don't try to subvert our group, because we don't accept that philosophy, actually. Our philosophy is you have to take shelter of the current representative in the chain of disciplic lineage. If Srila Prabhupada had taught that, you don't have to take initiation from me, you can take initiation from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. But he didn't teach that. And some people say that Srila Prabhupada created Ritvik Acharyas. Well, yes, it's a fact. Srila Prabhupada used Ritvik Acharyas to perform initiation ceremonies. The term Ritvik appears something like 35 times in Srimad Bhagavatam alone. So it's a very well-known idea. And the idea is that a priest performs a ceremony or sacrifice on behalf of another person. That person is considered a superior person. And he gives the order that you perform this ceremony on my behalf. And then the priest goes and he does all the necessary. But I went through all the Vedas, and every time I could find any instance of Ritvik Acharya, and I could not find any instance of Ritvik Acharya where the person giving the order on whose behalf the sacrifice was performed was not physically present on the planet at the time. There is no example of a posthumous Ritvik Acharya. The Ritvik Acharya is always acting on behalf of someone who is alive, physically present on the planet at the time. There are plenty of examples of that. But there's not one example of someone saying, you do this ceremony after I die. No, not one. The only even thing that even comes close is the Shraddha ceremony performed usually by the eldest son after the death of a Vaishnava, great personality. And the custom is that one goes to Gaya, where the lotus feet of the Lord are there. When Lord Vamanadev came to the planet Earth, he left his lotus footprints there. They're very small, because Vamanadev was small, short, yeah? So they're a normal size human footprint almost. You see, Krishna's footprints are like that. Krishna was about 16 feet tall by our standards. But Vamanadev was midget. So his footprints are small. So anyway, you go there and then you offer prasadam, you offer food, and then you offer the remnants of the offering to Vishnu to the departed ancestor. And this is called Shraddha. So this is the closest thing to any kind of posthumous ceremony. Generally speaking, when somebody is dead and gone in Vedic society, that's the end of it. It's like it's between them and Krishna at that time. The Shraddha ceremony is the only thing that I know of. The only instance. In the other instance is when a devotee becomes a perfectly pure devotee, that certain number of generations in the past and future of their family are automatically liberated. Yeah. Yeah. So if one person in a family becomes a pure devotee, then so many generations, there's various different numbers, 5, 10, 15, 16 in the case of Prahlad. I guess it depends on the grade of the pure devotee and like that. So I can't find any instance where this Ritvik philosophy is borne out in the Vedas. So even though it would be nice to be able to say we can take shelter of Srila Prabhupada directly, certainly we should take shelter of Srila Prabhupada's books. Srila Prabhupada wrote his books to last 10,000 years. And they will last 10,000 years. That was his intention. So we should. He has given the definitive statement of Vaishnava philosophy for this age of Kali Yuga. So that doesn't mean that we should approach him for initiation. How can we approach him for initiation when he's not physically present? He can't give us any particular personal instruction. I know personally I benefited tremendously by my personal instructions from Srila Prabhupada. For example, Srila Prabhupada instructed me to write. And up until that time, I had never thought of being a writer or of writing more than very occasionally, you know. Actually, I didn't like writing. It's too much trouble. In those days, that was before computers. If you wanted to write something, you had to use a typewriter. And then that means every time you made some changes, you had to retype the whole thing. So I never wrote more than a couple of pages, maybe for school a couple of times, but that's it, when I had to. Anyway, I sent Srila Prabhupada some essays, and he wrote me back and said, oh, this is very nicely written. So simply read our books and then express the same thoughts in your own words. This will be very nice preaching. Up until that time, I hadn't thought about writing. Preaching by writing. I thought I was going to preach by music. But, of course, Srila Prabhupada was a great writer. So if he wants, he can empower someone, one of his disciples, to write. So I took this up and followed his order. And by this writing, I became a professional writer, which I had never dreamed of doing, being a professional writer. And for 25 years, I made my living as a professional writer. And even now, I'm getting residuals and pension and everything from that work. So it's been a blessing from Srila Prabhupada. But that was just the practice. Like Hemingway says, you take your first million words and throw them away. Well, I took my first million words and sold them. Now the real writing is going. And the real writing, of course, is my books, especially Vedanta Sutra. After finishing Vedanta Sutra, I felt like, I'm complete. This writing business is finished. Because I know that Srila Prabhupada wanted an edition of Vedanta Sutra, but none of his disciples had managed to even complete a translation of Vedanta Sutra, what to speak of a nice commentary. So I had to take whatever fragments of translation that I could find, and then use different sources to compile a complete translation and commentary. I used the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and the Govinda Bhashya.